All right, guys, what's going on? Nick here, founder of Lead Mining Pros, but you already know that. And welcome to the Masterminds podcast, where I try to bring the leaders in every industry, not just real estate. And I try to introduce my audience to other people that are also experts or masters in their field. And I just met Nick Kosko. This guy so far is a wealth of knowledge, and he does something that I am actually really interested in starting. So this is going to be a very exciting call. I'm excited to learn, and then probably through all of my learning, I'm sure everybody else will too. Nick, welcome to the show, brother. Appreciate you
Hey,
being here.
man. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. Thank you so much. And you were just telling me a little bit, but why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, and then not necessarily how you got here, but the story of what brought you to where you are now.
Man, I had the American dream. Born and raised here in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. Um, all I ever wanted to do was go fly big airplanes. I thought for a moment I wanted to go, be like Tom Cruise and fly jets off a boat and all that. And
Yeah.
God closed those doors on me pretty early. But I remember telling my high school guidance counselor, "Hey, I want to go fly those big brown and white airplanes." UPS's airline headquarters is here in Louisville, and I was like totally enthralled as a
Okay, well,
16, 17-year old, so that's been 30 plus years ago. And as fortune would have it, Nick, it all happened. Okay. By the time I was 30, I was flying a 747 around the world. I had this beautiful bride. She told me that she was pregnant with our first kid. We
wow.
had the beautiful house, the dog, the whole thing, right? And I was doing the American dream, right? I had this pension, I had a defined contribution plan. I remember someone telling me, "Hey, Nick, and you started so early that you're going to have over $4 million in your retirement plan plus your pension when you're 60, 65 years
What
old,
a
whatever
great
that
feeling.
was."
What
Yeah,
a
man,
great
it was
feeling.
awesome. I was like,
Yeah, right.
it was like I was just levitating around town.
Yeah.
And then like '08 and '09 happened. And in 2010, because big shipping company doesn't do anything fast, I wound up getting laid off. And I got to tell you, man, as a provider for a family, for my wife, like that was a blow. My wife worked a little bit, but we were primarily single income home. And right then and there, we lost our single point of revenue, our one and only point of revenue. And I'll never forget that feeling, but you have this fight or flight moment, and we all do it, right? It happens to people every day. Things happen to us. You're faced with adversity. Adversity introduces a man to himself. So what are you going to do? Like I could have sat and collected
Unemployment.
unemployment for months on end, and I had peers doing that. Because there was a little gap, I remember distinctly getting an unemployment check. And I think it was for like, I wish I had the stinking thing, to be honest with you, but it was for like $800. It was like the max you could get.
Yeah. Right.
And I remember sitting there being so disgusted holding on to this thing that I wanted to put it in the shredder. But like, I kind of really needed the $800,
Yeah.
and so it set off a chain reaction of events that honestly, when I look at it, it's almost embarrassing how long it took. But sometimes that's just, it's God's timing, right? Like it's all
Yeah.
supposed to happen. It all
Part
happens
of the
for a reason.
journey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's part
Right.
of the journey, right? And I've always joked I'm a slow learning. It took me a long time to learn how to fly an airplane.
Mhm.
But once I figure it out, I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And a defining moment for me was I was interviewing financial advisors, and I'd done Dave Ramsey's financial financial peace course, and I'd figured out like I liked his first couple steps that resonated with me. But then when he would get into investing and buy term, invest the difference, like I just felt like the math was wrong. Like I started really questioning these messages coming at me,
The scalability. Right.
this scale, but just the overarching message. I just felt in my gut, Nicholas, that this was for their benefit, not mine. And it was that right there that led me to question. So like I sat down with like half a dozen financial advisors. I was like, you're a great guy and all, but I just don't think that what you're pitching me is for my best
Right.
interest. Right.
Right. Sure.
And I said this to a guy one day and he said, well, have you ever heard of infinite banking? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he said, no, dude, it's about being your own bank. Like banking's the most important business in the world. Why wouldn't you want to be your own banker? And he starts rattling off all these things to me, Nicholas.
Right. Right.
And I was like, so I started asking him all these questions because you're like me, you're like a curious sort. And like you get
Yeah.
somebody in
Right.
front of you, right? You just like let her rip. And he was a new client of someone who's now one of my closest buddies. He's a competitor, but we joke we're co-competitors.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and this poor cat that was in front of me that day couldn't answer one question. He's like, Nick, read the book. So I finally get this book called Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. I read the book, and the word that jumped out at me over and over and over was control. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It's like, I love flying the airplane. Like, once you have flown the big jet, like you don't want to sit in the back anymore. You want your hands on the controls,
Right. Right.
right? You want to be in control. And it's not to say, hey, I'm a control freak. Like I can only do it better. It's not that. But what hit me is that the financial industry all wants control of my money. So, Nicholas, how much of your money do they want?
Yeah. Right. All of it.
How long do they want it?
Yeah. Forever.
And how much do they want to pay back to you?
Yeah. For what a CD, I think is at like the highest I've ever seen in my lifetime, and a CD is at like 5.5% right now. And
Yeah.
it's funny that you say that because every time I drive by a bank, I'm like, man, these motherfuckers are so smart. Imagine being able to put a sign out. Like this is, I think this is about the point you're about to make. Imagine if I put a sign out in my front yard and I was like, yo, you give me $50,000 and a year later, I'm gonna give you $2,500 back extra. Okay. Is that gonna like what a deal? And I drive by banks all the time and I'm like, man, I wish I could pay people back. I wish I could collect money and pay people back at that rate, you know?
Yeah, man. It is amazing, dude. I wish I need you doing our presentation for us because it's exactly what it is. I realize that they want control of my money. They want to pay me back as little as I tolerate. And I was like, I've got to know more about this. So I tracked down Nelson. Okay. I find him at his house in Birmingham, Alabama. I get him on the phone. I'm like, Nelson, nobody in the state of Kentucky certified to teach this. Like, I need help. I want to learn how to do this,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. Right. And he tells me what I got to do. And I do all his course and certification. And we get done, Nicholas. And I asked and pressed on maybe one of the most important things that I've ever done. I said, I need a mentor. And he goes, Nick, you don't need a mentor. You nailed it. I'm like, Nelson, I completely fooled you. I know that you love me because I fly airplanes and you flew airplanes for 60 plus years, but I've completely fooled you. I have no idea how to communicate this effectively.
Yeah. To someone else.
So,
Right.
so here's what he does for me. He reaches out to one of his closest confidants who happens to be the Michael Jordan of our business. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you've had amazing people call you before, right?
Yeah.
And did you always know that it was an amazing person on the other end of the phone?
Yeah. Right. No.
I had no idea who was calling me that day.
Right. Right.
All
Yeah.
right.
You don't always know. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of times I'm like, hey, so who are you? Because
Yeah.
sometimes what I'll do is I won't know someone's credentials and then I won't give, this sounds rude, I'm sure, but I won't give them the respect, quote unquote, that they deserve, but it's because they're just another dude to me. And I meet tons of dudes. And then afterward,
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's who that guy was. I wasn't
Right.
even
Right.
listening when he was talking.
And that's right. And this is okay. You want to hear something funny? So this guy calls me. I don't answer because for whatever reason, I call him back. He doesn't answer. And then he doesn't call me back for like 3 days. Now, Nicholas, in full transparency, I got a little huffy about that. Okay. And I almost went to Nelson and said, hey, I need you to get somebody that actually will take my phone call and call me back.
Yeah.
What a dumb ass mistake that would have been. Okay.
Right.
But about then, Jim and I connect. And his name is Jim Oliver. He is arguably the Michael Jordan of our business in terms of been there, done that. 36 years, former homeless kid, on
Wow.
foster kid on the streets of Inglewood, California, figured out how to get to the other side of the tracks. Um, and it has a mission to show people how to achieve what he's achieved and beyond that. And I can tell you within a couple square feet of where I was standing in my old house when he laid it on me. He just started talking to me about money and asking questions. And Nelson had told him that I didn't need any help. So Jim was assuming that I didn't need any help.
Right. Right.
What I didn't realize is that Jim doesn't need to call me. He doesn't need to answer my phone calls, my texts, my emails. Jim doesn't need anyone like this. But one thing led to another. That's now one of my closest friends in the world. We're business partners on multiple fronts. I joke that he likes my kids and my wife more than I do. That's a
Yeah.
total joke, but we're truly all phenomenal relationships. And that's who I was talking to before we started recording. And his book is right here. It's my mouse won't work on my wooden table sometimes, so I grabbed his book. It's my mouse pad today.
Oh, well, I love it.
Called Make Bank Without the Bank. And here's what it did. He showed me you have an instinct, and so many of your listeners have this same intuition, is that something's not right with the financial world. The messages we're being told, Nicholas, are there's something off with them. And you just said it. You said, listen, man, they take 50 grand of mine, and a year two later, I'll accept being paid 2,500 bucks.
I
Right?
couldn't
Like,
do I couldn't do anything better with that.
but yet people line up to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So he explained it all to me in not one conversation, but the thousands of conversations that we've had systematically over and over, explained it to me about what's going on, the real truth. And the way we talk about it, it's the unseen about money. And what we want financial freedom. Money buys choices, choices buys freedom. Right? How do we employ the tactics of the financial industry to create abundant wealth? Not pay off my cars, pay off some debt. All that's well and good. And we have clients that do that. But the bulk of our clients are putting hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars into their banking system, and they're going to put that to work to buy bigger and better cash flow assets. And at the end of the day, we're going to have an amazing wealth transfer that's going to last generations if we teach our kids to do this the right way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And then you do that through the infinite banking strategy.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So Nelson, there's a lot of people out there, and I'll address that term because it's kind of thrown around.
Right.
Nelson Nash wrote this book over 20 years ago called Becoming Your Own Banker. He was a forester. He had bought an insurance contract from his brother back in the 50s. And he had like a light bulb moment, literally on his hands and knees praying back in the early 80s when interest rates went through the roof. And he realized that he had money in his life insurance contracts where he could take a loan from them at a super low interest rate and pay off all this high interest debt that he had. And it was like it was a total epiphany moment for him that this policy had very unique provisions that he didn't realize it had, and it solved problems for him. And over the next coming years, he started packaging this message up, which was just educating us about the financial problems. The biggest problem is we finance everything that we buy. You either pay interest to other people, or when you pay cash, you give up the ability to earn interest. And Nicholas, there's no in between. And that's where Dave and Susie are totally wrong. Cash has a cost. It could be in that CD. It could be in some other investment. And if you take it out of that, it's not earning that. And that's a cost. And he said, listen, if we just solve that problem, then you don't really have financial problems anymore. if you can be in control, you take and finance everything through this very specifically designed life insurance contract, then you can win. And he lays it all out and he gives a couple examples, and it's a 92-page book. It's small words, big font, something even I could understand as a knuckle dragon pilot. And I didn't understand it all, but I understood that this was the antithesis of what the noise was trying to tell me to do. So that meant I was all in, because I truly believe only the dead fish go with the flow.
Yeah. And you were just, I don't want to say laid off at the time, but you were in this transition phase. And it sounds like you bought this book, and then it also sounds like you hunted down the author of the book. You said you went to a seminar, so you found the author, you got in front of him, and then you got him to connect you with what sounds like almost was his mentor, in a sense, so
Jim would argue with that, but I totally appreciate why you said that.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, it's very cool to, I'm sure, right? Considering this guy founded this stuff in the 50s too. But it's really cool to hear about, because my journey is similar. It's like when what I was putting everything into crumbled, the universe put something in front of me, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens. And you're like, oh, breadcrumb, oh, bigger breadcrumb. Oh, there's a sandwich over here. And then it's like, oh, there's a 4-course meal. And, so it's like you start, and it sounds like that's the journey you're on, almost like what they'll call like the hero's journey. Like you're experiencing, you put it all in, villain came and crushed it. Now you found a better way, if you would.
I love that, because we talk about the hero and the guide. What I love, I remember Jim, he used to be a traditional financial advisor, and he'd said, well, listen, we all have the same stick. We all say, how much money do you have? Where is it? And let me show you how I can do so much better.
Right.
And what we're doing is, you're the hero of the story, Nicholas. We're not the heroes. We're the guides, right? We'll show you the path to financial freedom in a way that you didn't understand it before. No matter how much money you're making. We have a client that has $500 million in real estate. 8 years ago, he had 1 million. He runs his taxes and escrow through his personal banking system to the tune of hundreds of thousands a month, right? Through a tax shelter that's providing him tons of benefits that will impact generations. And as it leverages, that's the most powerful financial word, right? Is leverage.
Yeah.
And what's sort of frustrating is there's a lot of noise out there, even in our space. Okay. If you've got money to get yourself clicks, you can say a lot of stuff and a lot of people will see you, but it doesn't mean what you're saying has any real truth to it. And there's a lot of gimmickry in our space. And that part's a little frustrating, but we're committed to being the signal amongst the noise. I joke all the time, we're Nelson Nash purists. Would teach religiously out of that book, Becoming Your Own Banker. Every book is some offshoot of that. If someone's calling bank on yourself or be the bank or any of that stuff, it's all rooted out of Nelson's teachings.
Right.
So we just stick there. We don't, it's kind of like there was a movie, and I think it was Will Smith. He was teaching what's his nuts to dance. And gosh, I can't think of the guy's name. And the white guy and Will Smith, and the guy kept Kevin James. Yeah. He kept like wanting to do all the crazy moves and whatnot. And Will's just like, no, just stay right here. And that's us. We're just staying right here, right in the middle, right at the foundation of the messages Nelson taught. And we're not getting into gimmicking. You can do all kinds of trickery with a life insurance contract. And I can unpack all of it, how it's just noise. But the real thing is, stick to the basics, focus on going and what are you going to go do with the money?
I was just going to say that, right? It's like, let's not try to ninja the system to death, because one thing I wanted to speak on was infinite banking. I also believe works best when you're rich with opportunities, right?
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. Because if you have nothing to put the money in, put it in the fucking stock market and pray Elon can keep selling Teslas, right? But if you're rich, I just had this awesome conversation with my girlfriend, and it was about the 401k. All right. And why I think it's a scam. So I'm going to give you that conversation real quick. And
All
then
right,
you
cool.
tell me what you tell me if I'm on point or off point.
All
Because
right.
the difference is I'm rich with opportunities. I own a lead generation company. So all my customers bring me deals all the time. Right. So I have a
Love it.
different methodology.
Awesome.
And so here's what I told her. I said, you're going to put, let's say miraculously, your 401k gets to $100,000 miraculously through a 10% contribution. I mean, how long would that take?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, then on top of that, you have all this money in stocks. First of all, stocks market crash, you crash. You're not immune to that. Okay. So you're with the ebb and flow. So, oh, well, if you're watching something for 10 years climb, and then one day it crashes, all the excitement you generated over the last 10 years about your retirement was just destroyed, first and foremost. That I don't like at all. Secondly, if someone comes up to you and says, oh my God, I've got the best deal on the planet. All I need is $100,000 and you could have $1,000,000 in equity. Just get that 100. Yeah, I got 100. Yeah, I got 100. I think I got $100,000. Yeah. You can't touch that fucking money. So you can't even, that money, you are putting it in prison.
Yep.
Okay. And any amazing opportunity that comes across in your lifetime, you have to say, you know what? It's actually an AT&T right now. You wouldn't believe it. I bought stocks with it. So I'm praying that AT&T does better than I do with it. And then you have to forego. And for me, I don't think that's worth it. I don't think locking that money up, again, it's the 5% play. I don't believe, and I'm an entrepreneur, so I know I have different methodologies, but no one can make more money with my money than me.
Love
Nobody,
it. Love
you
it.
know? But so is that, I feel like that's kind of a little bit in tune. This is going to be a great commercial for you. There's some of these things.
So here's what I love is you use one of my favorite words, prison. Okay. So
Yeah.
you can ask your girlfriend these 3 questions. Are your taxes going up or down in the future?
Right.
It's just a math problem. They're going up. I'm happy
Yeah.
to unpack that for any of your listeners that think it's going down.
Yeah.
Um, Second of all, the dollars in your pocket worth more today or in the future?
Right. Yeah. Today. That's
Today,
right.
no questions
Yeah.
asked. Would you rather, and then would you rather pay tax on the seed or the harvest, the little number or the big number?
Right. Yeah. The little number.
So all of those fly in the face. The answers you gave contradict putting money into a qualified plan, right? Money today is worth more than money tomorrow, always.
Yeah.
I want to pay tax on the seed, not the harvest. And our taxes are going up in the future. So control, right? The financial industry preys on that. So let's just say at the end of the day, your girlfriend does have 100,000. So she gets to 59 and a half and her money babysitter says, hey, I did all the math for you and you get to take out 4% a year. Okay. So she gets to take out $4,000 and it's taxed. Yeah, that's great. You're going to live on that.
Right.
Oh, add a
Right.
0 to all of that. Is that going to cut it?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
So think about this too. Here's a little noise for your listeners and yourself to start kind of like paying attention to. What's more important, your average rate of return or your actual rate of return?
Right. Your
Okay.
actual.
Your
Yeah.
actual.
What happens at the end of the day? Like,
But what,
like with the stocks, it's like you only make that money when it's in your hand. It's when it's in Ameritrade still, it's still like in the slot machine.
yeah. So let's do an exercise. And we're gonna highlight this because you figured it out, but let's just help your listeners understand what the heck we mean. So let's take $100,000. If in year 1 you earned 100%, how much do you have now?
Right. That's 200,000.
200,000.
Yeah.
Year 2, you lose 50%.
Right. So you lose everything you made year 1. Right.
You're back to 100. Year 3, you make 100,000. Make 100%. So now we're back to 200. And in year 4, you lose 50% again. So now we're back to 100. Now, all right, that's 4 years. Now, the financial industry is allowed to do what I'm about ready to say. Do you know what your average rate of return is over those 4 years? It's
What did they?
crazy.
Um,
I know you don't have a calculator, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
and I know the answer already, but go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, go for it. Oh no, I was gonna say, if they're looking at it from an optimistic perspective, they'll probably call it 0.75,
Okay,
or
all right,
75%.
yeah, okay, you're on the right track. So if you average 200 ups and 250s down, it actually works out to 25%.
25%.
So
Okay.
so it's an average rate of return of 25%, but your
Wow.
actual
You've made
return
zero.
is zero.
Wow.
And they're allowed to do that. So when people tell you that the stock market averaged 9.41% and all this BS, good for them. The actual is down in the threes.
Right.
Okay. We've got
Right.
videos that'll prove it. Okay. It's just
Yeah.
math. We even have a course on our community app called It's Just Math for the guy that needs to see all the math unpacked.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I was just recently in a seminar and he said, if you're making 10%, you're breaking even. And he's like, that's the reality of it. If you're making
Yeah.
10%, you make zero.
And
And
it's
he's like,
probably, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, and I just thought that was such a powerful lesson because he's right. Because you have the stress that you incurred throughout the year that you fucking thought about that money. I'll tell you
Right.
what, now that I'm financially set, I stress is totally a commodity. And anything that stresses me out, I don't give a fuck what it's making me. It's out of my life. I had some tenants and I was totally getting stressed out. And I was like, $500 a month cash flow. Like I make $4,000 a day and I'm losing sleep over $500 a month cash flow. And I was like, like this is not worth it to me, and that doesn't mean real estate's not worth it. It means me managing the real estate isn't worth it. And it's like someone else could do it better and not lose sleep at night. But so it's like, understanding, that, 10% is nothing. That's how I see it. And so I think that's so in line with like,
Yeah.
where you're headed with the banking system is when you're not in control. You even said 9.71, and that's great numbers for the stock market. That's record breaking numbers, I'm sure. And it's like, it's still
Right.
breaking even,
Yeah. It's funny you say that because Jim and I bought a franchise 3 years ago. And we were sold that it would be an absentee model, and it's not been anything. It's been the antithesis of an absentee model. Okay. And it's not what he and I want to spend our time on. And we've built it, and it does a little bit better than break even, but I'm not interested in break even or a little bit
Right.
better than break even.
Right.
And it's a stressor.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
because we are in control of the financial system on this thing, I've got a buyer who is super interested, and we're offering 100% owner financing because we're in control. And so I can monetize that in a different way, create cash flow there. Um, just to your point, that it's going to be more than $500 a month if I'm owner financing in this thing.
I
It
love
takes that
owner finance.
stressor off of my plate.
Mhm.
I get to serve a guy who is like excited about the opportunity because he
Right.
wants to be in the stinking thing.
Right.
I want to be doing this.
Yeah. No, and I agree. I owner finance everything now.
Yeah.
I take a down payment and then I pray they default. Let's go. I'll do this again. I'll find someone else. Hey, you wanna give me that bag?
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a friend owner financing one of my Teslas right now. And
Oh,
I
cool.
always joke to my mom, like, if he wants to give that thing back, and I'll take it. It's like we'll do this whole, but that's the point of being in control, right?
That's right.
Is it's like I win no matter what. He pays, I win. He doesn't pay, I win. It's like no matter what, you win. And I think that's the important part. And he owns the vehicle. Like they own the asset. They're 100% responsible for it. It's not on me. And I think that segues like perfectly into infinite banking, because when you own the asset,
Yep.
you are now in control. And then when you own the money and the money owns the assets, I mean, think about how much,
Yeah.
control you have. I mean, I think I know I'm getting excited because this call's right on time for me. I'm doing a bunch of unique things with money.
Cool.
And the best thing I'm doing right now is I'm just investing as much into great real estate deals as possible.
Yeah.
But I only have so much cash, right? So it's like I just put $200,000 on a 9 unit, And it's like when you have 200,000, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to invest. And then when you spend it, you're like, wow, I guess I got to wait another year to invest another two. I got to earn
Yeah.
another 200,000 now
Yeah.
before I dish it out. And so I'm really interested in what you do, because I think the other thing is that we haven't touched on yet is you shorten the opportunity at which it would take to have access to those
Yeah.
funds. I mean, not that you make 200,000 a year, but if I need to start. If I start investing now, there's a time period where the scalability of those resources increase, and then I can deploy that into multiple deals.
If you were running a race, would you want to start the race first or finish the race first?
Right, finish it
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. And
Right.
and so that's a challenge to your listeners, because a lot of times people look at infinite banking and they look at the life insurance contract and all of that, and they go, man, but there's a cost. The dreaded cost,
Yeah.
right? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure if you and I went and bought a McDonald's today, let's say we paid 3 million real estate all in, we're not pulling out 3 million in year one, right?
Yeah.
But we'll
Right.
do it because after 3 or 4 or 5 years, we're going to be making, a few $100,000 per store, right? And it's the power of leverage. It's the power of protecting our money from future taxation. And, that's the people that don't do this, they don't understand it, or they can't think long term. And it's always funny to me, Nicholas, how people are like, well, I got to figure out what's best for me. I'm like, so you think that you're smarter than the banking system, every Fortune 500 company, every major bank in America, like,
Right.
because they're all doing this.
Right.
And so
And
that's back to what I was saying, I think, before we started airing. The financial noise wants control, but I was super curious, like, what are the decision makers doing? And when I started like trying to stress test this, I learned that every Fortune 500 company does this. Half of Congress, both of the dipshits that just ran for president and are probably going to run for president here in November,
yeah.
they all do this. So why wouldn't I want to do what they're doing? And that led, my curiosity and like wanting to understand everything. Like I started doing this before I understood it all. I don't need to know it all to engage in something, but I needed to understand the path. I needed to have a great guide. Jim was my guide. Nelson Nash was my guide before he passed away a few years ago. And I've learned this the right way. And I love what you said, man. You get 200,000 and you're get like,
You're all
it's
gung
burning a
ho.
hole in you, right? And you know what? Okay, so think about this. If you make a deposit at the bank, is that an asset or a liability to the bank?
That it's an asset to the bank.
All right, don't feel bad. Everybody answers it wrong.
Yeah,
It's
right.
it's a liability to the bank because they got to pay it back to you
It's
whenever you
mine.
want it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
The loan is the asset. Okay. So that's why loan officers for the bank are running around all over town. They're at the networking meetings, all this. They need deposits, of course, but they need to deploy the capital. And so we got to think that same way. And I love it because you're already doing this. Okay. You're already doing infinite banking. And Nelson Nash said, listen, you can do infinite banking with a shoebox full of cash. You can do it with a CD, a checking account. He just figured out that the most advantageous platform was this very specifically designed dividend paying whole life policy. And I had to get out of my own way with that because I thought I knew better. But he laid it all out. Jim laid it all out to me. It's like, try to disprove this. And trust me, I tried to
Right.
disprove it.
Yeah.
And our prospective clients try to do it too. And then they go, shit, you guys are right. Like
Yeah.
don't take my word for it. Look at the
Do some
proof.
research. Right. Yeah.
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 Go get the numbers. Like I
Yeah.
always say, real estate is the only thing that's like tax deductible and pays you out long term. Like I've done a lot of research on investments, and everything's one or the other. Okay.
Yeah.
It's either
Yes.
tax deductible or it pays you passively. And real estate is like the only thing. And so just like you're saying, it's like after some research, you will deduce your own reality, from this,
Yes.
your own benefits. Like it's the only thing where the numbers add up in your favor. I think the only downside is that it's not, and I think you mentioned this, it's not the instant gratification move, right?
Yeah.
So I had a guy pitch me on this, and he used the phrase, and I just let me know where I'm at because I don't know anything other than my memory. Max funded whole life account. Okay. And I think like, and I don't know what max funded means other than what it sounds like. And that is they put a max annually, is what I imagine it means, that you can put into these accounts. Okay. I think it was like 40,000 or something. I'm not too sure what warrants that number, whether it's my income or the policy of the insurance company. But I think it was like year 8, like things start like working out really well for you, right? So I think that you have to look at it sometimes as, you know, the deferred benefit, right? It's very hard to say, oh my God, in 8 years, I'm going to have X amount of dollars and blah, blah, blah. And I think when you're hurting for income, it's hard to do that. But it's like, you know, when you realize like I have the income and the income generates the savings. So it's like, I do need to be thinking about 8 years from now. I do need to be thinking about 10 years from now.
Right.
And you know what? $40,000 a year. I'm sorry if like that ain't shit. And so it's like, I could totally fund that if that nets me complete dependency from the thing. And another point you made earlier about the people saying, I need to like do some research or whatever. That's really, there's comfort in delaying a risky decision. Okay. There is comfort in that. But what they don't realize, and I didn't realize, and I'm just waking up to it, and it took like millions of dollars in revenue for me to get there, is that not doing anything is the riskiest fucking thing that you can actually do. You know, I love watching my bank account. It just had $450,000 in it recently, you know, and I love that. But once you get there and you get over the high of, okay, I'm there, now it's like, well, fuck it. You know, like there's people that are scaling in front of my eyes and really growing. And it's because they're constantly pursuing opportunities. You buy a property for 100,000, it's worth 500,000. You repair it for another 100,000, you're 200,000 in, it's worth $750,000. You know what I mean? And not doing that, not deploying that opportunity is actually what hurts, you know? So I think that, it's just understanding that not doing anything is a greater risk. And I think that would be a great sign off for you in a sense. Hey, yeah, no, I totally understand. You know, it seems risky, but you know, I just want to ask what's the risk of waiting 5 years from now and then calling me and then doing that? Yeah.
You know what cures fear? There's only one thing that cures fear.
I'm excited to hear it.
Action. Do a thing. I host this mastermind coffee here at my office on Wednesday mornings, and there's a young real estate investor who's been doing this since birth. He's 34 years old and not a care in the world. And new people come, and real estate invariably comes up as a conversation, and they'll say, how do I get into this? And Sam always goes, do a thing. Just get in the batter's box, take a swing at it, right? And you know, it's never too late to start doing the right thing. Yes, you're right. There is some expense at the beginning of starting your banking system. But 10 years from now, Nicholas, you put $1 million into your banking system and you get $1.5 million to use. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, right. And let's also not forget, because I think when sometimes we think about the banking, but we are funding a life insurance policy too. And so it's like, I think that that's important. You know, if I already die, there's probably, I think there's like 3 million in assets getting dispersed, which that's pretty cool, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, if I die and there's 3 million and there's fucking $1 million in life insurance going out too, that's cooler, you know? And it's like, also, I think it's important to remember we're protecting something, you know, and whether it's protecting ourselves or our mothers, you know, my mom, hopefully I don't go first, you know, but you know, if I did, and she never had a bill for the rest of her fucking life because of it, guess what? That's still better than me going and her worrying about paying my bills, you know, whenever that time comes.
I joke all the time, man. We don't do this for the death benefit. You'll wind up with more death benefit than you'd ever buy in term if you're doing this right. But if something happens to me, do not give my wife money. She's going to have to try to look sad at the funeral. I mean, I got a buddy of
Yeah.
mine who's single that I joke all the time. I'm like, you're going to try to be mayor's date to my funeral if something happens, because he knows that there's a lot of death benefit on me.
Yeah, you cannot tell the beneficiary that they're the beneficiary of a, but you know, but that is, let me tell you, we want to live forever, but life insurance is its whole own thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's, you
Yeah.
know, my girlfriend, her parents were immigrants. And I don't know how her father had the wisdom to get a $500,000 life insurance policy, and he died at 48 from
Wow.
cancer. Yeah.
Wow.
And, you know, it's a catch. You know, it's really however you want to look at it. But I'll tell you what, that family was in poverty before that man died. And
Hmm.
so it's like, again, you could lose somebody and you could still be broke, or you can lose somebody and, you know, like they got a whole come up and there was 4 kids in the house. I mean, like if you look at this story arc of them, and of course I'm very close to them, we've been together for 4 or 5 years, but if you look at the story arc, you just realize that how much it also lifts families out of generational poverty, you know.
No
And
doubt.
that's, and I know that that's probably a different conversation, but I just
Yeah.
want to say I'm close to a story like that.
Yeah.
So,
I love
so
that.
it's a big deal.
Yeah. And there's some great stories of our clients uh, along those lines. And I love it because you do become bulletproof. I
Right.
loved you said something about real estate. You get two things out of it. And most people look at investments as either or.
Right.
And what's amazing about these life insurance contracts, and there's so many misconceptions about it, but my money is in the policy, growing uninterrupted every day, tax free. And huge, gargantuan word. And I get to borrow against it to go buy cash flow assets. I
Yeah.
get both things.
And if I'm not mistaken, when you borrow, you pay yourself the interest.
Yeah. So just remember, we're using a mutual insurance company. And just to go down this rabbit hole just a tiny bit, there's two
Okay.
types of insurance companies: stock companies and mutual companies.
Okay.
Stock companies are owned by outside shareholders. Mutual companies are only owned by the policy holders.
Got it.
So
Got it.
I looked at buying a $140 million apartment complex a couple years ago. It had an assumable mortgage on it for like 80 million. You know who held the paper on that thing?
No.
It was a large life
Government.
insurance company.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're big financial institutions. And that's what everyone needs to understand. Okay. If you are a policyholder at a mutual insurance company, you are now part owner of a financial institution. So, Nicholas, if you owned a grocery store, would you go shop for groceries at my grocery store or the one that you own?
Right. Yeah. Mine.
So, all we're doing now is we're shopping for money from a financial institution that we have ownership and control in. It's totally different. And so, if you own the grocery store, would you go out the front door with the groceries, pay for them, or would you steal them out the back door?
Right. Yeah. I'd go out the front door and pay for them.
Yeah. So, if you own the financial institution, are you going to steal from it?
Yeah. Right. No.
No, no, you're going to pay interest to it because it makes the whole machine work. We get profits from it. We get dividends from it. We get interest, uninterrupted compound interest on the money. And as we were talking about, there's this tertiary benefit of if something happens to me or whenever I graduate from this world, there's going to be this tax-free wealth transfer to my estate.
Right.
So nothing can leave the system. And that's what's important is no one else is in control of it other than us, the
Yeah.
policyholders.
Oh, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
if you will, tell us how do we, uh, you know, A, how does someone contact you? And B, you know, what does, if you could, let's talk about what year one looks like, in a sense, because, I am interested. And I told you about, I'm doing something called a reinsurance company, which I've talked about on another episode.
Yeah.
And every year I can, and this is what I've been advised to do, every year I can take out 65% of what I put into this company. And then I was advised every year that I should be taking that money out and putting it into a whole life insurance policy.
Perfect.
Okay. is what I was advised to do. Is like, because it's kind of free money. I'm saving on my taxes. I already put it in there, and then
Yeah.
that I do pay myself my own interest back. So it's all just profit, 100%.
Okay.
And so that's kind of, my goal. And so I almost have like the system built in. And this is the first year I just started my reinsurance company. This is my
Awesome.
first year I'm going to be able to take out my 65%. So, we're kind of right on time, if you will. And so, so yeah, how does someone find you? And then, what does, maybe year one look like? Just like on like a fine, like, if you've just got like a softball park is great. Like, hey, if you put in X for X years, like you mentioned, a mil, and you got 1,500,000, what does that look like, or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll use a story. It's out of a book that's out of print now, but it's called Tax Invisible. And it's a book that we were part of writing, the Lieber Institute. And in that, the introduction says something really important. And it was a Silicon Valley executive who had a major cash out, and he worked with a friend of ours. He put $10 million a year into this life insurance contract, and he did it for 10 years and 10 years only. Okay. Now, I'm not recommending that's how you do it, but that's what this guy did.
He had
After
the
10,
resources, clearly.
yeah, after 10 years, he had 140 million in this tax shelter. Okay. At that point, he was going to withdraw. He was going to borrow against it because that's how you would do it. He was going to withdraw or borrow 5 to 10 million a year and live on the beach. Okay. Now, at that point, Nicholas, when you're borrowing and all that money is in a tax shelter, he doesn't have any income. Think of it like, for your listeners, when you do a cash out refi, you don't pay taxes on the cash out part of it, right? Because you borrowed it. All right. You don't. So in this guy's example, he doesn't even have to file a tax return anymore. He has zero income.
Right.
All that money's in a tax shelter. So that's what's happening in the policy. Yes, in year one, you're going to have 60 to 62% of the dollars to use right away that you put in. But for most of us in our ages, at year 10, when you put in $1, you're getting $1.50 to use. At year 20, you put in $1, you're getting $2+ to use.
Wow.
Right. At that point, I want those numbers to be big, right? I want to be putting in millions of dollars, getting 2, 3x of that to use.
Purchasing power is what that is, right?
Purchasing power,
Purchasing
leverage.
power is everything, right?
Yes, absolutely. So, like I said, we teach out of this book. Here, I'm going to offer your listeners a gift.
Right.
The way that you can get to us is go to createtailwind.com. Right in the center of the screen, it says join our community. You can join our community. I think the first 7 days is free. All I ask is that your listeners watch one course. Watch What is IBC or the Becoming Your Own Banker course. Reach out to me on there. Give me your address, and I'll mail you Nelson's book for free. All right.
Awesome.
If on there, on the website, it says like contact us, you can click that button. You can have 20 minutes of my time for free. There's a no hassle guarantee. I will not chase you down and beg you to buy from us, anything like that. We guide willing participants. If you join the community app, you're welcome to reach out to me on there, but I'm happy to help anyone on there. You can find us on Instagram, Create Tailwind. Facebook is Create Tailwind, or my name, Nick Kosko. So happy to help serve your listeners any way I can.
That's awesome. I love that too, because I offer courses as well, and so I think that's really cool that you do that, and that's definitely a great offer. I mean, something like this is, that's why I like that you have a course, because it's information rich.
Absolutely.
And I created my courses, two reasons. One, I can only spend so much time with everybody.
That's right.
Okay. And number two, I don't want my customers learning the hard way.
That's right.
And it's like, look, I've been in business for 7 years. Trust me, if you don't watch this course, you're throwing money away. So yeah. I think that I like that we share those same principles.
Yeah. And if you watch What is IBC, here's the thing. You'll watch that course, and at the end of it, you're simply going to know whether or not you want to learn more or not.
Exactly.
And that's it. Listen, our whole mission is to help educate you so that you decide whether this is for you or not for you. But the one thing you're going to learn from us is you're going to learn this the right way, not the tricked out noise way.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what's important. Principle driven fundamentals
Yep.
rather than, a lot of these people, and just like you said, I mean, you killed it. There's people that are good at getting eyeballs on them, but it doesn't mean that they're any good at what they do. And we see it every day on social
Yep.
media. And I
Yep.
think when you actually, it can be harder to see until you actually make it. In everyone's defense, right? And all the
Yep.
audience's defense, I think now that I've made it, I look at people and I go, I don't know. There's a lot of clues here that this person is still on the journey. And not that that's a bad thing, but I just love being vulnerable about like, hey, where are
Yeah.
we at? Like, if you follow
Yeah.
me on social, you'll see I post my weekly sales, and they're not that much. $1 million sounds like a lot to somebody, but the rooms I'm in now, like we met through that awesome mastermind that we're in.
Yeah.
But that room we're in now, I'm like, oh, only $1 million, huh, little guy?
Yeah.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. Let me
Yeah.
know. Let me know when you get up there. Okay.
Yeah. That's
But
right.
but but I love that. You know what I mean? I love that freshman in high school feel again. And I think that, to be fair to people, I think that's another hurdle that we have to get over emotionally is we're not the smartest motherfucker in the room. We cannot continue to pretend to be and be. And that's hard. It can be hard to realize that because when you don't have the finances or the opportunities in front of you, it's hard to realize, yeah, you might be the smartest person in the room because you've been at that job for 13 years. Why don't you put yourself in a boardroom in the NFL and see, and now you're like, oh, now I need a mentor. Shit, who's been here before? All right. And so I think that because
Yeah.
I'm always thinking of the human experience, right? Like if you can tell, I'm
Yeah.
always, to your point about the books, I'm always looking at like, what are the fundamental roadblocks that human nature puts in front of us? Not, oh, that guy, but no, there's a human nature to all of this, that I'm
Yep. No
always
doubt.
seeking.
I,
Um,
I love that, man. Thanks for sharing all that.
yeah, no, absolutely, dude. And thank you for coming on today. This was awesome. Let's book another call, talk about what I do, what I'm coming off of. I
Yeah.
also want to, and then we'll talk about next steps and see if we can do. I don't know anything about this, and like you said, I feel like infinite banking is a buzzword right now, and I
Hmm.
think it's important to get that knowledge out of the right people. A lot of people are using it and they're meaning all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to
Yeah.
learn from you directly.
Yeah, man. Thanks you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I'll see you, brother. Thank you, Nick. Thanks you so much for joining us today.